Hello and welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. As part of our weekly current affairs revision, we will delve into 6 most significant topics from The Hindu and Indian Express. Let's thoroughly examine each topic one by one, ensuring that we cover all essential details to keep you well informed and prepared. Let's start with the first topic.
That we'll be discussing today will be lateral entry into bureaucracy. So in this particular article, we'll be looking into what are the provisions and what are the justifications by the center or the Department of Personnel and Training to recruit lateral entry candidates into the Indian bureaucracy. And also we'll be discussing about what are the criticisms with respect to the lack of reservation for the SC, ST as well as the OBC candidates. Okay. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the All India services and also the concept of lateral entry into bureaucracy and the relevant provisions and also reservation in public employment. And this particular topic can be mapped to Mains GS Paper 2 under role of civil services in a democracy as well as government policies and interventions. Okay. Now moving forward, there has been a previous year question asked in the mains examination in the year 2014 about the cadre-based civil services organization being the cause of slow in India and critically examined. So as such, civil services as well as all India services and their role in the democracy is very, very important specifically for your mains examination. Now moving forward, let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. Okay. So the Union Public Service Commission, that is the UPSC, has recently issued an advertisement seeking applications for talented and motivated Indian nationals for the lateral recruitment to the Indian civil services to the posts of Joint Secretary, Director and Deputy Secretary in 24 ministries of the Union government. Moving forward, let us actually have an insight on how many vacancies have actually been posted. So, a total of around 45 positions have been advertised with eligibility extended to the individuals who actually possess the necessary qualifications and experience from the state governments or the governments of the union territories, the PSUs, that is the public sector undertakings, the statutory organizations, and it can also be research institutions, institutes, universities as well as the private sector. And also it specifies, that is the advertisement or the notification actually specifies that all the positions are suitable for the candidates belonging to the category of persons with benchmark disability also. Now moving forward, it is important for us to understand what is the lateral entry into bureaucracy and what does it mean, what are the related provisions and the relevant or the associated criticism that this actually faces. So, in 2017, Niti Aayog, which is actually the think tank, through its 3-year action agenda along with the sectoral group of secretaries, that is the SGOS on governance, they actually submitted a report that recommended the inclusion of professionals at the middle and the senior management levels within the central government, and these lateral entrants would join the Central Secretariat, which had previously been staffed exclusively by career bureaucrats exclusively from the All India Services and Central Civil Services itself. And also they would be offered contracts for a period of 3 years, which is very, very important. And there is also a possibility of extending the term to a maximum of 5 years. Now moving forward, if you actually see this particular timeline which is in this image, so in 2017 what is happening is both the Niti Aayog as well as a group of secretaries recommended the lateral induction of personnel at senior level in Government of India. And this goes on in 2018 where 6,077 applications were received for 10 posts of joint secretaries under the lateral entry scheme. And in 2019, 9 joint secretaries were actually selected and 8 had actually joined. And this goes on to 2021 where 31 candidates including 3 secretaries were selected out of the 2031 applicants. And of late in 2022, of the selected candidates, 30, that is 3 joint secretaries, 18 directors and 9 deputy secretaries joined in 21 ministries and 1 actually had dropped out. So this was the chronology of what had actually happened with respect to that of the lateral entry into the Indian bureaucracy. Now moving on, let us actually understand what are the positions that are actually open for the lateral entry. So following the recommendation that was actually given by Niti Aayog as well as a group of secretaries in 2017, the first vacancies for the lateral entrants were actually advertised in 2018, initially limited to positions of joint secretary level, and subsequently positions at the ranks of director as well as the deputy secretary were also opened. If you see, a joint secretary appointed by the Appointments Committee of the Cabinet, that is the ACC, holds the third highest rank in a department following the secretary and the additional secretary. So basically it will be the secretary, then it will be the additional secretary, and then comes the joint secretary. And this role serves as the administrative head of the department or the wing. Next one, if you see the directors, they are ranked one level below the joint secretaries. That is, following this will be the directors, and the deputy secretaries are one rank below the directors. So here you have the deputy secretaries, although in most ministries they carry out similar responsibilities. And also if you see, while the directors and the deputy secretaries are regarded as a middle level officials within a department, the joint secretary level is typically where all the decision making actually begins in a particular department or wing. Next, if you see, now we've understood what is this concept of lateral entry and why was the notification made, how it was actually made, and what were the vacancies or the posts for which the vacancies were issued. Now understanding is what was the union government's logic behind introducing lateral entries. Okay, so lateral recruitment according to the union government is intended to achieve two key goals. One is to bring in fresh talent, and the next one is to increase the availability of manpower. And also the concept behind this is to leverage individuals' domain expertise and specialized knowledge regardless of whether they are the career bureaucrats. Okay, so irrespective of whether they have been a bureaucrat since the inception of their career, it is important to give them the opportunity based on the expertise. Next, in line with this particular approach, officials from various central civil services have been given opportunities to serve in the central secretariat over the past decades, even though it has traditionally been dominated by the IAS officers, that is the Indian Administrative Service officers. Now, if you look at this particular image, you will actually know that there have been a lot of vacancies, okay, as of 2020 for the posts of these higher level officers. For example, you can see 116, okay, and then 102 in Bihar, and in Maharashtra there were actually 100 posts vacant as of January by key cadres and overall India. Then if you see Uttar Pradesh 97 as well as 1000 overall India, if you see it was around 1500, okay, so this is actually huge. So in order to fill these vacancies, the government actually had given out the lateral entry option. And if you see IAS officers working in India in the past 5 years from 2016, how it actually goes on till 2020, it is actually 5205. So because of this particular concept of lateral entry was introduced. Now moving forward, let us actually see how many people have been appointed via lateral recruitment so far. So the first round of lateral recruitment actually started in 2018. This saw around 6,000 applications for this JS, that is Joint Secretary level roles, resulting in 9 appointments across different ministries, which we actually saw in that particular image itself. Further, the rounds were held in 2021 and also in 2023, and as of August 2024, 63 lateral appointments have been made in the past 5 years, with 57 officers currently serving the various ministries as well as departments. These are all very static points and is not that important, but we are just discussing just for the clarity and better understanding of whether it has actually been implemented and how far it has actually been progressing in India. Now moving forward, let us see what is the criticism that this lateral entry recruitment is actually facing. It faces criticism of, not having the reservation or quotas for the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribe as well as the OBC candidates. Now moving forward, why are there no quotas in lateral recruitment? Okay, so what is the justification that the union government or DOPT is actually coming forward is quotas are not applied in lateral recruitment because these appointments are treated like the deputations or short-term contracts, okay, for a period of 3 years or maximum. It has a possibility of being extended to 5 years. So here reservation policies are not mandatory. Also, it focuses on hiring individuals with specialized skill and expertise, often requiring flexibility and speed. And over here, if we actually start applying the standard reservation policies, it's going to take, it's really going to be a Herculean task, okay? And although there are no mandatory quotas, eligible SC, ST as well as the OBC candidates are still encouraged to be considered for these particular roles. Now, how have lateral entries been kept out of the ambit of reservation? Here, it is kept out of the ambit of reservation on the way the recruitment process is actually structured. Okay, that is number one. It is based on this particular principle of single post vacancies. So, in lateral recruitment, each vacancy is actually treated as a separate individual post rather than a part of the collective group of vacancies. So there is something called as a 13-point roster, okay, system, where the reservation policies do not apply to single post cadres, meaning that if there is only one position to be filled, it is not subject to any kind of reservation. For example, now UPSC has actually come out with vacancies of 45 openings, okay. So according to the traditional or the conventional reservation system, we can actually say 6 vacancies can be reserved for the SC candidate, 3 of them can be given to the ST candidate, and 12 for the OBC candidates, and 4 for the EWS, that is the economically weaker section category. However, these vacancies have been advertised separately for each department. So, all of them don't come under a group of vacancies and they are effectively single post vacancies, and hence the government says that this actually bypasses the policy of reservation.
The next article is related to dual use goods. Recently, United States of America has warned Indian companies who are exporting some dual-use goods to Russia. They are saying that we will put sanctions on these companies. Now, here we need to understand what are dual-use goods and the India-US, India-Russia relationship. From syllabus perspective, it can be asked in prelims as well as mains. Mains GS paper 2 talks about groupings and agreements affecting India's interest, and GS paper 3 talks about science and tech, and this dual use goods, this is part of science and technology. Now moving ahead, look at this previous year question. It says, recently USA decided to support India's membership in multilateral export control regimes called Australia Group and Wassenaar Arrangement. What is the difference between them? First, Australia Group is an informal arrangement which aims to allow exporting countries to minimize the risk of assisting chemical and biological weapon proliferation, whereas the Wassenaar Arrangement is a formal group under the OECD holding identical objectives. Second, Australia Group comprises predominantly of Asian, African and North American countries, whereas the member countries of Wassenaar Arrangement are predominantly from the European Union and American continent. So such questions can be asked in the exam. Now moving ahead with the context. We are saying that US government officials are putting pressure on Indian companies, and this is not a new case because earlier in 2023 November, USA had put sanctions on an Indian company, a Bangalore-based SI2 Microsystems, this company. It was being said that this company is selling some dual-use technology to Russia. Now, first of all, what do you mean by dual-use good or dual-use technology? We'll take example of nuclear technology. For example, you brought uranium. Now, using this uranium, using the nuclear technology, what we can do? One we can do is we can use it for a civilian purpose. For example, you can generate electricity. Generating electricity is a good thing, and we are using this uranium for the same cause. So, we are doing a civilian thing. But there is another application of the same product, that is its military use, wherein we can use the same uranium to build nuclear weapons, and this can be used as a military weapon against any other country, and this is not considered a good thing. So we are saying there is one good which is having application in two forms. One is civilian, one is military application. Such goods or such technology are considered as dual-use goods or dual-use technologies. Now, if we want to take example of dual-use goods, this includes many things. Just like nuclear, we have some electronic components like some of the chips or semiconductors. These semiconductors will be used in our computers, laptops also, and these can be used in the satellites also, and these can be used in missiles also. Then there are many drones and softwares. See, drones, nowadays drones are very normal. They are used in many functions. For example, for wedding shoot, drones are used. Now, this is a civilian purpose. But the same drones can be used to send terrorists. Same drones can be used to send some kind of nuclear material. And then it becomes a dual-use good. There can be many chemicals also. There can be some machine tools which are manufactured. And these are called dual-use goods. Now, for curbing the proliferation of dual use goods, there are some mechanisms. What do I mean by proliferation? That such goods should not increase. And for that, we have Wassenaar Arrangement, Missile Technology Control Regime, that is MTCR. Such arrangements are already made so that such dual use goods and technologies are regulated by the world. Now moving ahead, if you look at United States of America or its Western allies, since the Russia-Ukraine war has started, they have started putting sanctions on many governments, especially those who are supporting Russia. Now, in this case, they have already put some of these items in the list of sanction, which includes drones, softwares, machine tools, etc., which are dual-use goods. And now they are saying that if you export such things to Russia, in that case, we will put sanction on you. If we put sanction, that means you will lose the access to United States financial system, which will not be good for any company in India. So that is the case.
Students, the title of the next topic is Broad Definitions in Telecom Act, Renewed Tussle Between Telecoms and OTT. So in this article, we understand about the Telecom Act that led to the dispute between the telecom operators and the social media companies. And we'll also know about the TRIA, that is the regulatory body that regulates the telecom industry in our country. And this topic is important from the prelims as well as the mains perspective, right? Now, there's a question asked on the petroleum sector in the year 2019, which means question can also be asked on the telecom sector, right? What is the context? The context is that there's a tussle between the telecom operators like Airtel, Jio, and social media companies or the interpretation. What is the interpretation? What constitutes telecommunication service under the new Telecommunication Act of 2023. This is the context. Now, the telecom operators like Airtel, Jio, they argue that over-the-top communication platforms like WhatsApp and Google Meet, they also fall under the definition of telecom service as per the new act. This is what the telecom operators are saying. Now, all the three major telecom operators like Jio, Airtel and Vodafone Idea have argued to the TRIA that the OTT platforms like WhatsApp and Google Meet should obtain the license from the government to perform or to provide these services to the people, right? Now, the Act of 2023 defines telecom services in a broad manner, right? What is the definition? Transmission, emission or reception of any messages by various means, and messages include any form of communication such as text, image, video or data stream. This is a broad definition of telecommunication or broad definition that is mentioned in the new act. Now, when the act was introduced, the government had publicly clarified that OTT platforms were not included under the telecom service definition. This is what the government had said, but it was not legally binding. Now, what is TRIA? It is an independent regulatory body which was established under this act, right? Which means it is a statutory body. Such type of questions will be asked in the UPSC examination, right? Now, it was created why? To regulate the telecom industry, so as to ensure the development of the telecommunication sector and protect the interests of the service providers like Airtel and consumers like us. The purpose is to regulate and manage the telecommunications sector. They regulate the tariffs for telecommunication sector, which means they increase the tariff, they reduce the tariff, but the purpose is that they promote fair competition. They prevent monopolistic practices in the market. This is about the TRIA. Now, the Cellular Operation Association of India, representing the telecom companies, they claim that OTT communication should be classified as access service to ensure a level or even playing field and consistent regulatory principles, which means that the telecom operators want that the OTT platforms which provide the same function, So you know, students, that as of now we are using WhatsApp for making calls, right? Or we also use Google Meet, right, for communication, which means the usage of the text messages or let's say voice calls has reduced, and this has impacted the revenue of the telecom operators. And that is the reason that telecom operators want or request the TRIA that the OTT platforms such as WhatsApp and Google Meet, which we use for the communication purpose, should be brought under the telecommunication service, which means they should obtain the license. Now, why do the telecom operators want the OTT platforms to take the license? Because taking the license would involve cost, which means that the OTT platforms have to abide by certain regulatory framework which would involve cost, and this can compensate or this can incur a cost to the OTT platforms, thus create a level playing field. But the OTT platform has refused to abide or has rejected what the telecom operators have demanded from the OTT platforms. This is the article all about. I hope you understood it.
If we talk about the third article of the day, Indian Prime Minister Modi sir has visited Ukraine. So what is happening? Has India's ties with Russia been affected to a certain extent, or is India trying to balance different relations? So we'll try to talk about this particular issue. And from exam perspective, what are the things which are important? Ukraine is in news. So the neighboring countries of Ukraine, which of the following countries border Ukraine? These kind of questions can be asked in prelims. So we should be aware about Ukraine. You should be aware about A to Z things related to Ukraine, especially the things which are in news. So previous year questions related to, in mains actually, what introduced or introduces friction into the ties between India and US, like currently in, I think, 2-3 years back in the DNA, we talked about how India and US is currently fighting over dual-use goods because those dual-use goods can be exported to Russia by India. So all these things, there are different areas of friction. These kind of questions has been asked by UPSC in mains, and we should be ready for pre also, especially the places which are in news, PIN. So PM Modi's visit to Kyiv marks a significant shift in India's foreign policy towards Central Europe amidst the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. The visit comes in the context of prolonged conflict between Russia and Ukraine, which started from Crimea annexation in 2014. Crimea initially belonged to Ukraine, Russia annexed it, and then it escalated into a full-scale invasion in 2022. So what is India doing? Just like India has de-hyphenated its relationship between Israel and Palestine, same kind of de-hyphenation is being done, according to the author of the article, between Russia and Central Europe. So this Ukraine is a part of Central European countries. And that's how we are trying to seek a more balanced global role here. Non-alignment has always been our policy, or in a way, we are trying to implement that policy now as well. So if you see this, Ukraine is a part of Central Europe, because if you see the Eastern Europe part will be comprising, because Russia is a transcontinental country. So major portion of Russian Federation, the western side of Russian country, that is like again, please understand this, it is Eastern Europe, this is Central Europe, and then the other countries like Germany, etc. will be part of Western Europe. So Ukraine, Central Europe, pay proper attention to this map. This is very important. You have to look at Ukraine just like you look at your better half. So Ukraine, what are the countries which are bordering Ukraine? Please pay attention. Whether Bulgaria is bordering Ukraine or not, Russia is bordering Belarus, which particular country? These kind of questions can be asked. So change in Indian foreign policy with respect to Central Europe. Strategic recalibration. India is shifting from a historically Russia-centric approach to a more diversified engagement with Central Europe. Because as our Prime Minister Modi sir says, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and we want to implement it at the global level also. So that means we want to take everyone. Like, we don't want to be like seen at one side or the other. We are trying to follow the earlier policy of non-aligned movement, that is NAM. Increase engagement. By deepening ties with Ukraine, India is asserting a more active role in European geopolitics independent of its relationship with Russia. Time and again, it has been said that Russia is an all-weather friend of ours. Unlike US, which sometimes during the time of Trump era, we had a transactional relationship, quid pro quo. But even then, even if Russia is an all-weather friend, we should be keeping our options open. Because it is said that in international relations, nobody is a friend or like an enemy. It all depends upon opportunities and how you are tackling different crises or challenges. So strategic autonomy, that is also being reflected when we are visiting Ukraine. The change aligns with India's broader strategy of strategic autonomy, allowing it to engage with multiple global powers and regions without being bound by traditional alliances. So India-Russia relationship is fine, but we are free to follow other relationships as well. Opportunities in Central Europe. Engagement with Central Europe offers India opportunities for economic, technological, and defense cooperation, enhancing its global standing. Now here, Ukraine places Kyiv, Odessa, Crimea. Please pay attention to these regions also, apart from the countries which border Ukraine. Now, potential implications on ties with Russia. Perception of shift. Russia may view India's increased engagement with Ukraine as a shift away from traditionally close India-Russia relationship. Balancing act. India must carefully balance its evolving ties with Central Europe while maintaining its strategic partnership with Russia, particularly in defense and energy sector. Now, that will be a key challenge for us. How we are balancing this India-Ukraine and India-Russia ties, especially in Central Europe as well. So, transactional relationship. India-Russia relationship could become more transactional, focusing on mutual interest while managing differences over issues like Ukraine. Just like we have somewhat of a transactional relationship with US, which we have discussed, especially during the Trump era. Complex diplomacy. India will need to navigate complex diplomatic terrain, ensuring that its new engagements do not compromise its long-standing ties with Russia while also reinforcing its strategic autonomy. Even Russia-Pakistan relationship is booming. Some political experts were saying that Russia has even given certain weapons to Pakistan. So when Russia and Pakistan can have relationship, why India and Ukraine cannot do the same? So all these kind of questions have been asked by different political experts, and we will see how this whole thing pans out in future.
The next article that we'll be discussing about is Europe's push, India's agency, why Modi visit to Kyiv is significant. So this particular article, as the title suggests, actually discusses about what will be the significance of Modi's visit, that is the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Ukraine. And in this particular article, we'll be discussing about strategic diversification of India's foreign policy, where India is actually seemingly, enhancing the cooperation it actually has with the East European countries. So, this particular topic becomes important for both the prelims as well as the mains examination under GS Paper 2, Effect of Policies and Politics of Developed and Developing Countries in India's Interest. So moving forward, there has also been a previous year question which was asked in the year 2015 with respect to that of which of the following countries of the Southwest Asia does not open out to the Mediterranean Sea. So map questions, especially with respect to these international relation news and topics, become very, very important for your prelims examination. Now moving forward, let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. So, the Indian Prime Minister's upcoming visit to Kyiv marks a pivotal moment in India's foreign policy, and this actually highlights a significant shift towards greater engagement of India with respect to that of Central and Eastern Europe. And this visit, the first by an Indian Prime Minister to Ukraine since the establishment of the diplomatic ties back in 1992, actually comes at a time when the geopolitical landscape in Europe is undergoing significant changes, and it actually happens to be a lot more volatile due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, in this backdrop, if you see, the Indian Prime Minister's visit actually signals India's intent to recalibrate its foreign policy in order to address the emerging global challenges as well as the opportunities. Now, moving forward, it is important for us to understand what is the strategic importance of the Ukrainian visit, okay? So, the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Ukraine is a departure from India's traditional alignment with that of Russia, reflecting a nuanced approach to international relations. And this particular visit actually underscores the fact that India's recognition of Ukraine's strategic importance, particularly in the context of the post-war reconstruction, the defense cooperation, the agriculture trade, where India can play a significant role. And also, engaging with Ukraine aligns with India's broader strategy of expanding its influence in the Central as well as in the Eastern Europe, an area that has been relatively neglected by India's foreign policy so far. And also, the visit is a part of India's broader Europe push, which is actually aimed at foreign deeper ties. That is, they are actually trying to forge deeper ties with the region, which is becoming increasingly important in global geopolitics. So, if you actually see, this actually happens to be the map of Ukraine, where the borders towards the north, south, east and west becomes very, very important, whether it actually borders the Black Sea or not, or the Russian Federation, all this becomes important. And also, if you look at the Ukraine's geography, it is actually a country which is situated in Eastern Europe with the capital that is actually Kyiv, located along the Dnieper River in the north-central Ukraine. Also, if you see the bordering territories, it is bordered by Belarus to the north, Russia to the east, the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea to the south, as well as Moldova and Romania to the southwest. And to the west, if you see, Ukraine shares borders with Hungary, Slovakia, as well as Poland. In the far southeast, Ukraine is separated from Russia by the Kerch Strait, very, very important, which links the Sea of Azov to the Black Sea. So this is actually the map where we can actually locate Crimea here, the Sea of Azov, the Dnieper River, which actually flows into it, the capital Kyiv, and towards the northern side, it has the Belarus, and here Russia towards the east, and so on. Now moving forward, here we need to know what is the implication on India-Russia relations, that is the implication of the visit. So while Modi's visit to Ukraine signals a shift in India's foreign policy, it is unlikely to harm. So while he is actually visiting, recognizing the strategic, presence of Ukraine, on the other hand, it looks like it will, not affect the India-Russia relations. And also, India has maintained a long, strong partnership with that of Russia, which had historical ties and also shared strategic interests. Also, this engagement, it presents the strategic diversification and it is not a realignment. Very, very important, allowing India to balance its relationship with both Ukraine as well as Russia. And the visit is part of India's broader strategy to engage with multiple global powers while preserving its strategic autonomy and existing alliances.
If we talk about the first article of the day, keeping an empire alive. Now, Vijayanagar Empire is in news, Hampi is in news. There are certain areas which, when we talk about history per se or medieval history per se, we say that this is the love of UPSC. UPSC continuously asks questions from these areas. Vijayanagar Empire is one of them, and it is one of the most what do you say, hotspot areas from where questions have been asked in the past. Just like Mongols, like from Mongols, UPSC has asked questions in the last 2-3 years. So Vijayanagar Empire you cannot ignore. So let's delve deep into this particular article, what this article is all about, and then we'll also try to understand different terms which are attached in this article or attached to this particular article rather, that is mandapas or mantapas. So Krishna Dev Roy in UPSC 2016, a mains question related to Krishna Dev Roy. And here also in Vijayanagar Empire, there are different dynasties, Sangam, Saluva, Tuluva, Ravidu dynasty. We should be knowing about these dynasties rather, and we should also be knowing Krishna Dev Roy belonged to which of these four dynasties, which one of these four dynasties. So Krishna Dev Roy, king of Vijayanagar, was not only an accomplished scholar himself, but was also a great patron of learning and literature, and you have to discuss this. So what is the context? Why we are reading this particular article? So Hampi is filled with monuments and there is a particular mantapa. See, understand this thing. UPSC has already asked a PYQ on Kalyana Mandapa or Kalyana Mandapa. So there are different types of mandapas, various different types of mandapas. 3 major types we'll be discussing today. Plus, I will also suggest you to read one particular NCERT chapter from new NCERT, that is class 12, chapter 7. After you are done with this particular article, please open your NCERT, new NCERT, class 12, chapter 7, read that particular chapter because Vijayanagar Empire is very important. So Hampi is filled with some monuments, some are like it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but still what is happening? There has been a collapse of Salu Mantapa at Virupaksha temple due to heavy rains, raised questions about neglect at the World Heritage Site. Now, a question for you. In the previous DNA video, I've seen there was one guy who answered all the questions, all the 6 questions which I asked. So please try to be like that student. And here there is a question for you, that Virupaksha temple is associated with which particular god? Similarly, Vitthal temple is associated with which particular god? If you know this, please post it in the comment section. So collapse of Salu Mantapa. What is this Mantapa? We will understand it in just few moments from now. First of all, let's have a chronological look at Vijayanagar Empire. 1336, it was formed by Hariharan Bukka, 2 brothers. 1509 is particularly important because Krishna Dev Roy, he started ruling from this particular period till 1529. And this was the pinnacle, like one of the, what do you say, most known rulers, very popular ruler of Vijayanagar Empire is Krishna Dev Roy, 1509 to 1529. Again, a question for you. You can answer it in the comment section, that Krishna Dev Roy belonged to which of the 4 dynasties? 1565 Battle of Talikota. Vijayanagar Empire's power were severely compromised, although they will keep on ruling in certain areas till 1646. 1799, British Surveyor General Colin Mackenzie makes the first map of Hampi. And this Colin Mackenzie, he has been discussed in class 12 chapter 7 as well. So that's why I'm telling you again and again, go to new NCERT rather, read class 12 chapter 7. 1860s, more photographs were taken. 1796, Center sets up Hampi National Project. 1976 rather, and 1986, Hampi is UNESCO World Heritage Site. So please remember this. UNESCO World Heritage Sites, all the new sites which are being added, you have to keep a tab on that. And Hampi is especially important. Vijayanagar Empire is very important. So mantapas, that is why we are reading this. Salu Mantapa, it has collapsed. So 3 different types of mantapas we'll understand. See, it is mantapas, it is also mantap, or it is also mandapa. And what it is? So it is a pavilion or hall. I will just show you one image. So this is one type of mantapa or mandapa. Not all mandapas look like this. This is one type of mantapa or mandapa. So like I will tell you, Kalyana Mandapa, which has been asked earlier, which is a PYQ. So UPSC asked, in this, marriages happen. Sometimes even the gods, they are brought together and they are married. So Kalyana Mandapa, marriage ceremonies or other significant rituals. Pay attention to the bold words. Salu Mandapa, which is a shaded space for gathering, rituals or rest. Pay attention to the keywords here. Ranga Mandapa or Mantapa, performance and ritual or religious rather ceremonies. So pay attention or keep in mind these 3 different types of mandapas or mantapas. That would be enough. And which particular mandapa is in use right now? Shalu Mandapa. So now Vijayanagar Empire. We should know something about Vijayanagar Empire. Already we have seen a chronological description of Vijayanagar Empire. Harihar Bukka 1336, capital Vijayanagar, Hampi. Located on which river? All these points are important from both pre as well as mains perspective. Tungabhadra River. Again a question for you. Tungabhadra River is a tributary of which major river of south? Is it Krishna? Is it Godavari? Is it like Kaveri? Which river it is? If you know it, please post it in the comment section. Dynasty, Sangam Dynasty, 1336 to 1485. Harihar and Bukka belong to this particular dynasty. Saluva Dynasty, 1485 to 1505. From here onwards, you have to be little wary. You have to be little attentive because it's not like till 1505 and then there is a like Tuluva started from there. There is an overlapping period during like 1490 to 1505. In some areas, Saluva were ruling, in some areas, Tuluva were ruling. Same goes here. Araviru dynasty you are seeing from 1570. But from 1540s onwards, you will see Araviru dynasty ruling in certain parts and Tuluva dynasty ruling in other areas. Important part here, or important point here rather, Krishnadev Roy belonged to Tuluva dynasty. Pay attention and remember this particular point. So what is the conclusion here? We are talking about a collapse of a particular mandapa and we need more community involvements. Environmental damages are happening. Humans are like people who are involved there. Sometimes they resist the conservation efforts which goes on. ASI, Archaeological Survey of India, which is there, they want to excavate more, to find more. So all these things calls for more community involvement in conservation efforts with concerns about environmental degradation and lack of local engagement. Hampi's conservation needs to consider the well-being of its local population and environment. And we need to bring together the local community if we want to survive the fragments, the remains of ever so pristine Hampi.